Well, today is the day. Iron Man is getting moved into the shop so we can get the clutch swapped on this bus. A couple weeks ago, I went to go make a clutch adjustment at Lance's on it for him because he was noticing that it seemed like the pedal was biting pretty much at the top of free travel on the pedal, just right at the top. And when I went to go do the adjustment, this thing will not adjust. It is at its limit. And then since then, they've started to notice just a tiny bit of slip to it. And then on the drive out here to get the clutch put in, we ordered the clutch, I think 2 weeks ago. Luke sent it to us and it's been here. He was having problems on the hills. So this is going to be kind of interesting getting it up to the shop. I had him leave it down here because I wasn't ready to have it up top yet. We were doing some stuff in the shop where I couldn't get it in there right now. But now that we're ready for it, we're going to get it started up here. Suspension is already aired up on it. It's only been sitting a couple days, but I got to build air in it. And then we'll get it back down the driveway because I want a good running start. We're going to do it in first gear. But I am a little bit concerned that it's going to slip the clutch. So I do want some momentum going into the hill. So we'll get this thing started up here and get it in the shop. Fired right up. Give it a sec to get some oil pressure all through the motor, make sure everything's lubricated before I bring throttle up to get air up, but this bus always runs good. One of the things we're going to do while it's in here too is I'm going to run the rack on it, set overhead, do all that stuff, because I don't think we've actually done that on this bus. It might have been done at the rescue, but it definitely has not been done since. Alright guys, we're going to go for the hill. To the floor. It's definitely slipping. I can feel it. Not happy about that. We definitely had some RPM increase up the hill where we were not increasing bus speed, but we've made it, so I guess we call that a win. Well, we made it up into the shop. Get this opened up here. There we go. That is just a touch difficult to do one-handed. So we got a few things we're going to be messing with while we're in here. I've got a couple oil leaks I need to look at on this thing. But the big thing is, to do the clutch, this engine actually slides out of the chassis. So an MCI sits on those little triangular rails on both sides. So what you end up doing is you have to slide the engine back on that cradle to do a clutch. There we go. Because of how it sits in there. So the bell housing is right here. The problem is the axle is right there. So that transmission actually goes pretty much even to the axle. The drive shaft feeds over the top of the axle into the drop box, which the drop box mounts on the front side because the pinion actually faces forward in an MC5. So basically everything on this engine that's hooked to it needs to get disconnected like we're going to pull it. And then we are going to slide that engine back about 2 feet probably. How far do you think we're going to slide that back to get the clutch? 2-ish feet?
Yeah, maybe 18 inches.
Just enough room that you can get in there with tools and actually get the clutch out of there. But you know, it's still a bit of a job to get it slid back. We also are going to be working on the levelers on this while it's in here. The leveling arms are a bit misadjusted on this because we had to make a new set for it. It's got a little bit of a higher side on the left here. Like I said, we're going to address some oil leaks and stuff on it while we got it in here. Take a look at those. When I pulled it in the shop, Dad actually got some video. It's got a clunk out of the front end that I have not heard before. You can't hear it or feel it riding in the bus, but I need to take a look at that while it's here. But just a little bit of maintenance. As far as I know, this bus has the original clutch in it. I don't know that it's been done. How long was this bus abandoned for? 20 years when it sat? Yeah. Getting these tensioners loosened up here so we can get this belt out of the way. Make that one of our first projects, so it'll make a lot more room to work in here. They were stuck. I got the other one over here, broke loose. Well, it's starting to fight me again, so when in doubt, just get a bigger ratchet, and it gets easier. All right, so we got the belt up. We had to take the latch assembly out down here that holds the rear engine doors in. I've just got it pulled up against the top of the bulkhead. We do have enough clearance though to get straight in. It'll clear under the intake on top of the blower there, so we'll leave that. I might run these adjusters up a little bit just to get a little more clearance here, but I don't know that we're coming back far enough where that's going to be a problem. Like I said, the engine's probably going to be hanging about here. I think it's not coming back farther than the doors. I just sprayed down the bumper bolts with some penetrating oil, so those will start to soak. I think next up I'm going to start getting the exhaust disconnected over here. So we're leaving the merge here, crossover, and all that. We're just going to drop the pipe that goes down into the muffler out of it. That's all we need out of our way. The rest of it can stay with the engine as we slide it. So when you're doing a bigger project like this, one of the best things you can do is, these are all the parts that I took off in this tray for the door latch. So I'll put them all in a magnetic tray. Now that the door latch is off and done, this will all get moved into a Ziploc bag. We'll label it with a Sharpie, and we'll set it off to the side. Then I'll just keep using this tray as I'm taking things apart, because I can sit it anywhere, get the thing apart, tag it. This job's going to be a straight apart and back together because the new clutch is sitting right there, so I'm not waiting on it, but it's just a good habit to get into. You never know what's going to happen. You get distracted, you get pulled away from a project for a few days, a few weeks, come back trying to remember where all your parts are. It's so much easier if you've already tagged them. Also, do a video. You know, you can always go look back and see how things were routed, pause it, zoom in, take good pictures, stuff like that. That's just going to help you when you're, you know, working on Mc5 right now. But you know, it's not only MCIs we do. We work on a lot of different stuff, so just makes your life a little bit easier. Get the clamp off here. Go ahead and start getting these upper radiator lines. Damn it, too big of a screwdriver. Out of there. Now, no matter how much you drain, there's going to be coolant here because these are the thermostats. On the top side, you're going to have coolant, so make sure you got something below you to catch it, because otherwise you'll just make a mess of the floor. Also, oh, no, I was wrong. I thought we were going to have to replace that clamp. I thought it was unscrewing, but it's not. It just has a weird flip to it. Huh. I figured that'd be leaking more than that. I'll take the bottom one off and see what it does. There's a little bit of coolant coming in there, so we'll grab a pick, shove it in there, and let it drain straight pick. Oh man, there's hardly anything coming out of there. All right, well, I get that loosened up and start getting those off now. Let's see if we get lucky on the second side. Generally, these make a hell of a mess. I mean, it still is holding coolant. I can see the level down in there. It usually doesn't have a lot that flows past the thermostats when they're closed. Usually that traps coolant pretty heavily. We'll see what this side does. I'm going to do it from the top to the bottom. Yeah, I think we lucked out. Normally, I would say be careful with these. You don't want to mess them up, but I think while I've got this apart, every hose I have off is going to get replaced on it, so that's all going to get trashed before we're done. Getting these air lines out of here. So I'm just going to tuck these off to the side and then label what they go to. So that one, I just need some tape real quick. That's for the fast idle on here. Just keep going and getting some stuff off. Gonna wait till after lunch when somebody else is around to give me a hand lifting that bumper off, but I might start breaking those bolts loose. Hopefully we'll get everything on the back end done today. I'd like to get started probably on that side, because that side's got less stuff to come off than this one. But my goal is hopefully by the weekend to have this engine ready to slide. Well, now that I'm in here looking, this is even easier than I thought. So the alternator is mounted to the cradle that I'm sliding. So the alternator will stay attached to the engine. All that oil stuff over here will stay because that's all going with it, which means I should be able to leave the fuel filters and everything on the other side as well. So this is turning into less of like pulling an engine and more of like removing a power pack where you've just got a few connections that are going to get undone. So I'm going to have to undo the power wires off the alternator there, set those to the side. I've got just the main coolant lines to do. The exhaust is already freed up. I have to remove the fuel feed to the filter housing over there, but that's just one thing to do. And then a little bit of wiring, which I need to get up there on the firewall and look. Hopefully these have like that aircraft style connector where it's just one connector to move them like the GMs do, but yeah, it's not gonna be too bad. The worst part's gonna be that transmission's gonna be free floating on a jack, still attached to the drive shaft and everything back there, because I'm leaving that in place. My plan is to walk everything forward with the transmission staying back. That might not work though. If that doesn't, then we're gonna have to disconnect it, slide it back, and then pull the transmission back off of it once it's forward, but I'm hoping that we can leave the transmission in place. But I don't think there's anything mounting the transmission past the bell housing bolts in these. I don't think this has a mount to it. I'm pretty sure it just hangs off the bell housing. Well, let's crawl under there and do some more looking. But anyway, now that I see how that's coming apart and that my life is substantially easier because of that, I've got even less stuff to disconnect. So I think I've only got like 2 or 3 things on this side to worry about after I get those couple power wires off. And this side's ready to slide. And then I probably should start pre-soaking all the bolts right there that go down and hold the cradle in place. Alright, I'm going to have help here in a little bit, so I'm going to start getting this bumper unbolted so that when they get here we can take this thing off. Bumper skin is off. Now we can get to the bolts that are on that inner support. I got the back sides, most of them oiled up and broke loose, but now that they're moving, it'll be really easy just to put a wrench on the back side, take the impact, and buzz those out. And then as far as the back side goes, we're just about done with everything on this end of the engine. Well, we got the inner bumper out of it, so that actually opens up a ton of room back here. And now you can kind of see how MCI cradles work. So you got these 2 angled channels that go straight in, and this is the cradle that hangs the engine and transmission that hook to it that just slides straight into the bus. So all that tubing and stuff here is your front engine mount. And back there, those bigger aluminum ones with the bolts going down are the rear engine mounts that are going to the gear train. So that is how this thing is suspended in chassis. But if you see, there's a bunch of J bolts, right, like up there. There's one right there, over there, that go down that just kind of hold that cradle in the right spot and get it centered. So we're gonna have to get all those loosened up. Most of them, luckily, are pre-oiled for me, but we're gonna get a couple that we're probably gonna go through and spray. Back end stuff here is getting really close to being done. I got a few coolant lines to do. Luckily, there's a spool right there for the mechanical coolant temp sensor. So I can cut the zip tie and that has enough wire to come out because we're not coming all the way out. We're just sliding it back enough to do the clutch. But just keep moving along, getting some more stuff off this thing. And see if we can get this engine pulled back. Well, that's going to be fun to find in a second. Lines out of here, get them laid off to the side. I was looking, I think this one's got enough slack that I can leave it. If not, it's got connectors here to unplug it, so if we have to, we can use that to slide it back. That's loose. That's got play in the backside. Huh. I'm gonna have to take a look at that and see what's going on. So that's the rear engine mount right there when I was talking about it, with those two bolts sticking straight up there, the big ones. So there's one of these on either side, and that with that tube up front that we showed is what actually carries this entire powertrain to the cradle. So I got a couple more things over here that I gotta take off. That coolant line right there needs to get disconnected. And then whatever this is needs to come off. I don't know where it's going. Oh, well. Apparently it doesn't. This one needs to come off. I think. I gotta see where that goes to. Oh, wait, no. We're good. That should be the oil return or feed for the air compressor. Yeah, it's the return. So, or no, feed, yeah. So we're good. So that coolant line is the only thing left on this side of the engine. It needs to come off before I can move it backwards. Well, it may not look like it, but I think this side is just about done. I've still got to disconnect my power steering lines over there, and then the air compressor's discharge line. Ooh, and the inlet's got to come off. But to get to that, there is an access panel on the floor up there that you can see. So I'm gonna have to go inside the bus and get access to that. But I think that's where we're gonna end the first video here. And then we'll hop back into it next time once I'm up in there disassembling it so we have access to the floor panel up there. Because I'm going to pretty much have to have access to that, I think, to get the top bell housing bolts out of this thing. But we're getting pretty close.